Today on the show, we have some more news to discuss in the world of sports. But then we're going to be taking a closer look at the NFL and in college football. You know, we're already like a month into the season. Which teams currently look like they are the class of college football and of the NFL? We might even have to take a look at some of the teams that aren't looking so strong, because we are going to have some Daly Dose power rankings today. And you know, we haven't had a Daly Dose top 5 now in a while. We've had some guests and done some different things. We're going to have a top 5 today, and I will let you know ahead of time, it is college football related. We're going to be talking about some insanely talented college football teams from history. We'll get to that in a few minutes. But first, of course, one of the biggest stories this past week was in the NFL with the injury of Miami quarterback Tua Tagovailoa. You know, a couple of weeks ago against the Buffalo Bills, Tua was hit. He banged his head on the turf. He got up, staggered around, fell down, got back up, wandered around all kinds of lost. He ended up leaving the game. But then the Dolphins medical staff said he only had a back injury and cleared him to return. He finished the game. The Dolphins actually beat the Buffalo Bills. And then this past week, Tua played Thursday night against the Cincinnati Bengals. And he was hit again. His head appeared to hit the turf again. And then things went south. Because Tua kind of froze. His hands went kind of weird. He looked like maybe he was having some kind of a seizure. It was truly scary stuff. It was horrifying. He ended up being taken off on a cart, and the undefeated Dolphins lost for the first time this season to those Bengals. After the game, we got to witness the sports media world at its finest, and sports social media as well, because folks were screaming about the NFL not protecting their players. Announcers on ESPN were crying again, and I don't mean crying like they were complaining. I mean literally crying, sobbing. I'm trying to think of what it would take to get me to cry here on the Daly Dose Sports Podcast. I'm assuming it would take some sort of like medieval torture, but the guys on ESPN, they're always crying. Why are you crying all the time? You're like a grown man. What? I don't know what would get me to cry. Anyways, we have people saying the NFL didn't do enough to protect their player. The players' union is screaming. The former players are screaming. The current players are screaming. Everyone is mad. Look, I get it. There's plenty of blame to go around. Over the weekend, the unaffiliated neurotrauma consultant that was used by the Dolphins was fired after it was found he made several mistakes in his evaluation of Tua. Okay, I mean, I guess we can blame him. But as usual, let's slow down, let's calm down a little bit, and let's be a little more rational. Let's not respond to this with the emotion of a frightened toddler. First off, let's be real clear. The Miami Dolphins, they've shown kind of a penchant for not really following the rules. We know this, right? I mean, they were talking to Tom Brady. They were making some deals under the table. They ended up getting draft picks pulled. They still have pending lawsuits going with Brian Flores. I think we can all agree that Miami ownership, they're fine with skirting some rules, right? Second, we are saying be more protective of Tua, right? We want these players protected, right? At any cost, right? Well, I mean, we don't want the roughing the passer calls, like when a defensive player lightly touches the quarterback on the head or maybe touches their face mask. Come on, we don't want those calls. Don't throw the flag on that. That's nonsense. That's ridiculous. And I mean, we all hate when they call those ticky-tack pass interference calls. Enough with that nonsense. And if a quarterback gets sacked hard and then they call a penalty for like unnecessary roughness, what is that? I mean, you got sacked, you got tackled. Yeah, that's what every player does when they get tackled. They get tackled. Sometimes it's hard. And we're all screaming about how coddled these current players are, right? We want them protected. And also, don't take away our big hits because we love those. Do you see how hypocritical all of this actually is? And also, is it just me that thinks it's kind of weird that people on ESPN, like Rodney Harrison, they're talking about player safety now? I mean, Rodney Harrison had a reputation during his playing days as a filthy player that intentionally tried to hurt people. And you're going to lecture us about player safety. Man, shut up. Here's the bottom line. These players want to play. They are going to go out there. And all these former players can't act like, well, we didn't know the ramifications in our day, or we wouldn't have done that. Yeah, you would. And yeah, you probably did. We saw Hines Ward get blasted in the skull, and what was the first thing he did? He grabbed his ankle because he wanted to go back in. This past Sunday, Arizona Cardinals defensive end J.J. Watt played in the game despite the fact he had to have his heart shocked back into rhythm last week. Now, do you think Watt is aware he could possibly have future cardio problems? Yeah, I think he probably is. But he's going to go out and play. And you know what? We might act like, oh, he shouldn't do it, protect himself. But we love him for it. These guys are modern day gladiators. So, hey, blame the Dolphins. Blame the NFL. Blame, I don't know, the patriarchy or whatever silliness you want to blame. But honestly, we're all to blame for Tua's horrifying on-field injury. We don't want to take any blame for it, but we love it when these guys go out there. So scream and yell and complain all you want about how the NFL doesn't protect their players. But let's be honest, we don't really want them to protect them that much, do we? Okay, YouTube, be sure to go over and you check out the rest of the podcast. Like I said earlier this week on The Dose, the NFL and college football seasons are now a month in. We're going to be doing some power rankings and looking at the top teams. And maybe a few of the worst teams too. Plus, our Daly Dose Top 5 is remembering some of the greatest college football teams ever, except we're looking at teams that came up a little short in the end. So be sure you go over and you listen to the full podcast this week. I will leave a link here in the comments on YouTube for you. Hope you all are doing well. I will see you all next Wednesday. Have a great week.